A very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1, coming to you live and direct from Studio R, located here in the heart of Colombo. I'm Tharshi Kumar Singha in your lead story for the day. In his bilateral discussion with the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa emphasized that he will never sacrifice the country's sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity. President Rajapaksa further said that Sri Lanka's foreign policy remains neutral.
The US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who arrived in the island last evening, was welcomed by Secretary to the President Professor P.B. Jayasundara upon his arrival at the Presidential Secretariat this morning. Thereafter, the US Secretary of State met with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and engaged in a bilateral discussion. According to a release issued by President's Media Division, US Secretary of State has expressed his willingness to partner with Sri Lanka to accomplish economic and development goals. Mike Pompeo has expressed that seeing the Indian Ocean region as a region of peace is the expectation of the United States of America, and that the US is satisfied with the ongoing friendship between India and Sri Lanka. Responding to the US Secretary of State, President Rajapaksa said that seeing peace being prevalent in the Indian Ocean region is the ambition of Sri Lanka as well. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had further pointed out that Sri Lanka's foreign relations are based on several conditions, and that a historical, cultural relationship and development through cooperation takes top spot among them. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa told the US State Secretary that China assisted to develop Sri Lanka's infrastructure following the end of a 30-year-old war. According to the President's Media Division, the President had emphasized Sri Lanka did not end up in a debt trap as a result of the assistance rendered by China following the end of the war. Following the discussion, the two parties have agreed to strengthen the long-term defense cooperation between the two countries. This will include training opportunities and material assistance from the United States to security forces in Sri Lanka. The President has emphasized the need for strengthening coastal services to eradicate the drug menace in the country, and the US State Secretary Mike Pompeo has expressed their capability of assisting Sri Lanka in this regard, expressing the desire of the United States to continue to work closely with Sri Lanka in achieving a high level of economic development. The State Secretary said priority will be given to promote US investments in the island. In reply, the President said Sri Lanka does not wish to obtain loans continuously but wishes to achieve a high level of economic growth by attracting more foreign investments. The President had pointed out Sri Lanka is a country that possesses the necessary factors to achieve high agricultural development, adding the country's agricultural sector should be modernized and expects assistance towards it. The US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Elena B. Teplitz, Under Secretary of State Brian Bulatao, Chief Assistant Deputy Secretary at the Bureau of South and Central Asian Affairs Dean Thompson, Senior Advisor to the State Secretary Mary Kissel were the other members of the US delegation. Following the meeting with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the Presidential Secretariat, US State Secretary Mike Pompeo and his delegation arrived at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Admiral Jayanath Columbage, welcomed the State Secretary, following which bilateral discussions were held. A number of notable figures, including Minister of Foreign Affairs Dinesh Gunawardena, State Minister Taraka Balasurya, Ministry Secretary Admiral Jayanath Columbage, Sri Lankan Ambassador to the United States Ravinath Aryasinghe, Additional Secretary A.M.J. Sadiq, and Director in charge of the North American region Darshana Pereira attended the bilateral discussion.
A joint press conference was convened following bilateral talks.
The United States is one of Sri Lanka's major development partners, and we remain deeply grateful for your support. Today's discussions are a continuation of interactions of His Excellency President Gotabaya Rajapaksa with key US interlocutors, dialogue which took place virtually between myself and Secretary Pompeo a few months ago. Sri Lanka's foreign policy will remain neutral, non-aligned and friendly, conscious of the opportunities and responsibilities that come with our strategic location. We see the importance of maintaining the freedom of navigation in our seas and airspace, also protecting sea lines of communication and the undersea cables.
The United States seeks to strengthen our partnership with democratic, peaceful, prosperous and fully sovereign Sri Lanka. The United States has donated now just over $6 million in COVID assistance to Sri Lanka. And early in the pandemic, Sri Lankan factories and garment manufacturers quickly filled hundreds of orders for high-quality PPE, and we are grateful for this output, which saved American lives. Thank you so much. And as I conveyed today, good governance, transparency, and policy consistently will attract even more American investment. Indeed, a strong, sovereign Sri Lanka is a powerful and strategic partner for the United States on the world stage. It can be a beacon for a free and open Indo-Pacific. Look, that's quite a contrast to what China seeks. We see from bad deals, violations of sovereignty, and lawlessness on land and sea that the Chinese Communist Party is a predator. And the United States comes in a different way. We come as a friend and as a partner. We fully expect that Sri Lanka will fulfill its pledges to take meaningful, concrete steps to promote accountability, justice, and reconciliation.
Why have you chosen to visit Sri Lanka at a time when the US is going in for elections?
We want the people of Sri Lanka to have sovereignty and independence. We want them to be successful. We want sustainable development for them. We think the United States as a friend and partner offers just exactly that. And we want that. We know that these democracies have a shared vision for free and open shipping lanes, the capacity to trade, for people to travel wherever they want to go. These are visions that the people of Sri Lanka share with the people of the United States. And so my visit today was to talk about those things. These are the kind of things that America offers. There's a different vision. The Chinese have a very different vision. We want to make sure that the people of Sri Lanka have the capacity to execute their sovereign rights, to remain independent.
Do you welcome more U.S. presence in the region?
We have Secretary of State with us today. There will be many U.S. dignitaries, even in the future, visiting Sri Lanka. We hope to continue with our relations with the United States and other countries.
A discussion regarding the U.S. travel ban imposed on Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva took place on the sidelines of the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's visit to Sri Lanka. A resident of Saindamaradu who was in the vicinity of the U.S. Embassy in Colombo today protested against the ban imposed on the Army Commander.
Remove the restraint immediately. We love our Army Commander. We do not need your MCC, SOFA, AXA, nor the 480 million. It is the responsibility of the government to protect Sarath Fonseca, Shavendra Silva and others. Therefore, we hope that the government will use this opportunity to discuss the travel ban on Shavendra Silva and Sarath Fonseca. This is a necessity and an important responsibility to be fulfilled for the war heroes of this country.
Did the government of Sri Lanka request you to reconsider imposition of travel ban on Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva?
It's a legal process in the United States. We'll always continue to review it, and we want to make sure we get it both technically, factually, and legally right. We'll continue to do that.
Following the joint media briefing, the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo engaged in a tour of the St. Anthony Shrine in Kochikade, which was a target of the April 21st attacks. The U.S. State Secretary paid floral tributes to the victims of the attack and also held cordial discussions with the priests at the shrine. After the tour of the shrine, the State Secretary ended his tour of Sri Lanka and departed to the Maldives.
The Chinese embassy in Colombo responded to the statement made by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, referring to China as a predator.
Look, that's quite a contrast to what China seeks. We see from bad deals, violations of sovereignty, and lawlessness on land and sea that the Chinese Communist Party is a predator. And the United States comes in a different way.
In a tweet that included a picture from the famous movie Aliens vs. Predators, the Chinese embassy in Sri Lanka wrote, "Sorry, Mr. Secretary, we are busy promoting China-Sri Lanka friendship and cooperation. Not interested in your Alien vs. Predators game invitation. The US can play two roles at the same time, As always, China's foreign ministry spokesperson also lashed out against the US State Secretary's predator remarks today.
China and Sri Lanka are traditionally friendly neighbors. The two countries have developed relations based on the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence and have cooperated on the basis of equal consultations, mutual benefits and win-win results, which have brought tangible benefits to the people of the two nations. This cannot be distorted or slandered by anyone. We will continue to work with Sri Lanka to expand and deepen the strategic cooperation and partnership between the two countries.
Meanwhile, convening a media briefing yesterday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Weibin responded to a question raised with regard to the remarks made by US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo during his visit to India. The spokesperson said, quote, "Pompeo's attacks and allegations against China are nothing new. They are merely old lies repeated time and again only to expose his Cold War mentality and ideological bias. We urge him to discard the Cold War zero-sum mentality, stop hyping up the so-called China threat, and stop the misguided efforts to sow discord between regional countries and undermine regional peace and stability." Unquote.
While the US Secretary of State's visit to Asia is ongoing, Japan and the United States began air, sea and land joint military exercises in Okinawa Islands in a show of force in the face of increased Chinese military activity in the region. Foreign media reported that the Keen Sword exercise is the first big drill since Yoshihide Suga became Japan's Prime Minister last month, with a vow to continue the military build-up aimed at countering China, which claims Japanese-controlled islands in the East China Sea. Keen Sword, which is held every 2 years, involves dozens of warships, hundreds of aircraft and 46,000 soldiers, sailors and marines from Japan and the United States. Running until the 5th of November, it will include cyber and electronic warfare training for the first time. Both Tokyo and Beijing claim the Senkaku Islands, known as the Diaoyus in China, as their own, but Japan has administered them since 1972. Tensions over the uninhabited rocky chain 1,900 kilometers southwest of Tokyo have simmered for years, and with claims over them dating back centuries, neither Japan nor China is likely to back down. Recently, the United States, Japan, India and Australia met as part of the Quad, which is seen by some as a potential counterweight to growing Chinese influence and alleged aggression in Asia Pacific. A large-scale military exercise is also scheduled to be conducted in the Indian Ocean region next month. The United States, Japan, India and Australia will take part in the Malabar exercises next month. These 4 nations are of the stance that the Indo-Pacific region should remain a free and open region.
These are indications that the powerful nations in the world are gearing up for war. Politicians in Sri Lanka don't attach too much importance to these matters. Although politicians here make statements like it is alright if he just visits, what is the problem if he comes to our country? Both the United States and China have exchanged strong words with each other while in our island. This One Belt, One initiative was launched in 2013 and included 70 countries. Sri Lanka has become a strategic point and a hunting ground under this program. Massive loans have been granted under this program. Not only Norachole, the Ceylon Electricity Board has also proposed another project, and if that is implemented, a substantial portion of the power generation of our country will fall into the hands of China. Another program has been proposed by the Water Board to privatize the water supply. We are suspicious as to if this project too will be awarded to China. We know that China has already gotten the full ownership of the land in the port city. The speciality of these projects is the fact that on one hand they have been designed for economic reasons, and on the other hand these projects can also be used for military purposes. From the Hambantota port project, we were being taken into this trap, and now we are already in this trap. Now we are seeing a similar threat from the United States. They have simply asked for their share now. Tell us, what is this agreement that you reached regarding the important sea routes? They have held discussions to engage in bilateral military exercises in the United States. They have also agreed on a security agreement. What is this agreement? We are already ensnared in the Chinese trap. On the other hand, there is the US trap. India is asking for another portion, and we are signing agreements with them as well. What will happen to the sovereignty of this country? At the time, the United States Secretary of State Pompeo arrived in the country, we know that the AXA agreement has been signed. There were discussions regarding the MCC agreement, and there were discussions regarding the SOFA agreement. Especially the State Secretary is the person who holds the position of chairman of these funds. Therefore, the person who visited Sri Lanka is the chairman of the MCC program. Also, facts are being revealed that the United States wants an agreement even beyond these agreements. A plan to establish military might in the Indian Ocean region against China has been launched. It is to further this plan that Mike Pompeo visited Sri Lanka. We would like to stress to the government that although we are members of various international organizations, and although we have entered into agreements with these organizations, we have not expressed our willingness or become a member of any international military accord. Sri Lanka should not become a part of this plan that the United States has launched in the Indian Ocean region. This is not an issue of leasing out a coconut estate in Medamulana or deciding who is allowed to pluck coconuts there. But today, people who spoke out against these like lions are not making a sound. They cannot even be found. The government must reveal what was discussed between President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and State Secretary Mike Pompeo. They must also reveal to the country the agreements that were reached during the discussions. Also, what were the proposals put forward by the United States, and to which of those agreements did we agree to, and which of them were rejected.
අපි බැහැර කරන යෝජනා කවරේද කියලා රටට ඉදිරිපත් කළ යුතු තිබෙනවා. ඇත්තටම එදත් උන් බොරුව.
In all honesty, they were lying back then. As the Prime Minister in 2005, it was Mahinda Rajapaksa who wrote to the United States requesting for funds under the MCC agreement. The person who made the request then objected to it after 2015. They always used these interferences from Western powers and foreign nations to their advantage. In reality, they are make-believe patriots. That is why when these agreements that they opposed come forward while they are in power, they hide to protect their face. They also support these agreements. The opposition has forgotten our deal is with the people. We do not strike deals with the international arena. I heard of a protest organized by the JVP. We will not alter our policies. We follow a non-aligned policy. Based on that, anyone can come and go. We will not deviate from our policies when entering into agreements with other nations. We should comprehend the importance of Sri Lanka in the geopolitical arena. Another country had commented on Mike Pompeo's arrival here, and he had replied to it as well. So we can see how important this country is. We are an important nation, and we will not bow down to others.
Theros, who represent the organizations that supported the present government to come into power, expressed views regarding the US State Secretary's visit to Sri Lanka.
The Secretary of State who arrived is a former CIA spy. We have to inform this to the government. We would like to make a request to the government. Why were these spies brought here? What was discussed with them? People need to know. This is the government of the people. This is why the government was elected with a 2/3 majority. That is the question we have. The issue is these ministers turn serious matters into light topics. We are planning to have a meeting with them and ask them what their policies are.
MCC gives
The MPs and ministers of the present government attack the agreements such as MCC and AXA on political stages during the elections. Why are those who went to parliament through Viat Maga and who became MPs and ministers, those who opposed imperialists, silent? Why aren't they questioning the government? Why is Pompeo coming? For what kind of agreement is he coming? Why isn't the purpose of this agreement being questioned? We had a battle slogan stating that we will not follow Prince Dutugamunu. What we have to say is that the government is trying to follow a path of Prince Ranil.
The Samagijana Balawege voiced criticism regarding the stance held parties which are aligned with the incumbent government on the arrival of the US Secretary of State.
Vimal Veeravansa does not utter a word about the US State Secretary's visit. Vimal Veeravansa and Udaya Gammanpilla signed an agreement. It says, regardless of what decisions the leaders of the state makes, they will not support any effort which would allow the international community to take advantage of the country. I would like to know if that statement is valid even today. Everyone is a bystander now. The actions of fake patriots have come to an end following Mike Pompeo's visit. Their plans have been exposed. The same will happen if the MCC is signed. Nothing will happen. They debated against the dual citizenship clause. In the end, Vimal Veeravansa voted yes. Udaya Gammanpilla voted yes. And Vasudeva Nanayakkara also voted yes. They are acting as if Mike Pompeo did not arrive in the country.
Mike Pompeo වෙන රටකට ගියා වගේ තමයි මේගොල්ලෝ මේ දවස් ටිකේ ලංකාවේ ඉන්නේ.
This was Minister Vasudeva Nanayakkara's response to the rising allegations.
ඒ වගේම මේ ඇමරිකානු රාජ්‍ය ලේකම්වරයා අපේ රටට එන්නේ මොකට කුමක් සඳහාද කියලා මේ රජයවත් දන්නේ නැහැ. රජය දන්නේත් නැහැ අපිට කියලා.
No, the government doesn't. We haven't been informed either. We questioned the Ministry of Foreign Relations as to why their secretaries are coming here. We are ready to accept the international collective. There is no issue there. However, what are these facts? They said that the team came and talked about cooperation. We will not oppose the arrival of a guest to our house if we are under the impression that the guest will not hurt us. Our reply to them will depend on what they are proposing and inquiring from us. The former government had the policy of favoring America. This government's policy is a non-aligned one, so we have no problem.
There
is no need for us to get involved in that. As of now, China is expressing displeasure with America, and China is saying that this is a challenge to the independence and sovereignty of countries like Sri Lanka. I think that is the truth. They have no right to say that. Sri Lanka will have to take the necessary and most difficult decision. Taking a decision or avoiding it is up to us.
ඒ තීන්දුව ගැනීම හෝ නොගැනීම අපේ වැඩ. වැරදිලා හරි MCC කිවිසුම අත්සන් කරොත් ඔබතුමා ගන්න ක්‍රියාමාර්ගය මොකද්ද? වැරදිලාවත් MCC කිවිසුම අත්සන් කරන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි දැන් විධායක ජනාධිපතිතුමාට ඒ බලය තියෙනවා. විධායක ජනාධිපතිතුමාට එහෙම බලයක් නැහැ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඒ බලය.
Meanwhile, following his visit to Sri Lanka, the US State Secretary landed in the Maldives. During discussions, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that Washington will open an embassy in the Maldives for the first time. Pompeo told a news conference, quote, "Getting this facility open won't happen overnight, but it's worth it," unquote, on an island resort near the archipelago's capital Male. He added, quote, "It's the right thing to do. Your role here in the Indo-Pacific and in the international community is increasingly important," unquote. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo made these remarks after his meetings in the Maldives with President Ibrahim Mohammed Soli and Foreign Minister Abdullah Shahid. During the meeting with the Maldivian President and the Foreign Minister, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo highlighted the United States' support for Maldives' democracy and sovereignty. Secretary Pompeo and President Soli also discussed strengthening cooperation to advance their shared goals in the Indo-Pacific region. After Maldives, Pompeo heads to Jakarta, Indonesia.
Well, that was the political outlook of the country today. Now, let me direct your attention towards the COVID-19 situation in the country. 211 COVID-19 cases were reported today. Now, with the discovery of these new cases, the total number of COVID-19 cases in the country exceeded 9,000. The total number of COVID-19 cases in the country as of now is at 9,081. 9 of these new cases were from quarantine centers, while 202 were close contacts. Meanwhile, a quarantine curfew will be imposed in the Western Province from 12 midnight tomorrow until 5 a.m. on Monday, the 2nd of November. Head of the National Operations Center for the Prevention of COVID-19 outbreak, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, explained the steps that will be taken in this regard. Steps are being taken to impose quarantine curfew in the Western Province from 12 midnight tomorrow until 5 a.m. on Monday, the 2nd of November. For the areas that quarantine curfew is already in effect, the curfew will continue to be in effect even after 5 a.m. on the 2nd of November. The remaining areas in the Western Province where there is no curfew until today, curfew will be lifted at 5 a.m. on the 2nd of November.
What will happen to the procedure introduced to purchase essential items?
Residents of areas where curfew is in effect can purchase essential items including food and medicine from shops located close to their houses from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. tomorrow.
Will the curfew imposed in the Western Province be extended on Monday?
Do not attempt to purchase and stock up goods unnecessarily as the quarantine curfew will be lifted on Monday the 2nd of November. We kindly request people not to panic buy. No person will be allowed to enter or exit the Western Province throughout the duration quarantine curfew is in effect. Police roadblocks will be set up at the entry points to the Western Province. They will function continuously from 12 midnight tomorrow. These areas include the highway as well. Curfew limits will not apply to A-level students and staff assigned for exam duty. They can travel freely using any method of transport. Is there a reduction in COVID-19 cases as of late?
According to the statistics at present, there is a rapid drop in the number of patients being reported from the Minuwangoda cluster. However, we have to accept the fact that we cannot curb the situation entirely. It will take time. But we do hope that we can limit the number of COVID-19 cases that are being reported from the Gampaha district.
Is consuming fish dangerous?
The virus cannot sustain within the fish, but the virus can sustain on the surface of the fish. If you have fish stored inside your refrigerator, always wear a mask when you take the fish out of the refrigerator. Then put the fish inside a basin and pour hot water into the basin. The virus will die if you leave it be for 15 to 20 minutes.
How will this impact the lives of the people?
Although the residents of the Gampaha district were allowed to purchase essential food items on several occasions, many were unable to do so due to the inability to earn a substantial source of income.
What are the solutions provided by the government?
The government has taken steps to ensure that essential services are maintained efficiently, systematically and continuously amidst the emerging COVID-19 situation. According to a statement issued by the Presidential Task Force on Economic Revival and Poverty Alleviation, a special scheme is in operation to provide adequate food for 2 weeks to families who were under self-quarantine. In addition, it was decided to provide an allowance of 5,000 rupees for residents in areas that are under complete lockdown for a week.
Will essential items be distributed by the police?
The Minuwangoda police distributed essential food items to low-income earners in the Gampaha district. We hope to find people in need during the next few days and provide goods through the community police service of the police station to those in the Gampaha district.
What is the opinion of the GMOA?
During a period of 5 days, about 6 deaths were reported in the country as a result of this second wave or these new clusters. We all must consider this as a serious situation. According to the statistics and information that we have received, we will have to face even more severe consequences if we don't take more drastic measures to respond to this outbreak. The Sri Lanka Medical Association expressed the following views on the prevailing COVID-19 situation of the country and on the curfew that is scheduled to be imposed tomorrow.
Sri Lanka Medical Association and all medical colleges and associations strongly believe that the current serious situation calls for immediate intervention based on scientific, medical and public health approaches under the leadership of the health sector with collaboration of all the stakeholders.
In more news from here at home, the Negombo Crimes Prevention Division arrested a suspect for the possession of 1.6 kilograms of heroin.
The suspect, a resident of Mattakulia, was arrested based on a tip-off. According to the police, a vehicle loaned by the suspect was impounded.
And with that, it's a wrap of Primetime News for today. I'm Tarusha Kumar Singh, and remember, to stay ahead, you need to stay close to News First. For that, just simply log on to our website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. Stay safe and good night.